Welcome to another episode of the Jarring Science Club. I'm your host, Brenda, and today we're going to be learning about pollution. The standard we're working with today is NGSS 3-3, how to reduce the impact of humans on a local environment. We will be exploring that concept today by making 3 different models of pollution types. We will be exploring pollution on land, in the air, and in water. We will be making a pollution model of each of these 3 types of pollution. Today's activity is a science demonstration to illustrate a concept. You will need 3 jars with lids. You will need some tissue paper and a lighter. Only an adult should do this part. You will need some oil and some black food coloring or any dark color. You will need some water, some soil, and some trash items. I'm using styrofoam and plastic. You can use whatever clean trash you have around the classroom or your home. Packing materials are good for this activity. All right, let's get started. Here we are all zoomed in and we have our water jar, our air jar, and our soil jar. So the first thing I'm going to work with is the air jar. So for this project, an adult will need to do this step because we are going to be working with fire. So we're going to put some tissue paper or paper towel, whatever you have in there, and lighting it, and then we'll quickly put on the lid and see what happens. So you may not be able to see, but right away there's a bunch of fog and soot that's getting onto the sides of the jar, and just it looks hazy in there. That's the carbon ash and stuff getting into the air. And then let's open it. And there you can see the smoke escaping. Over time, all of the smoke gets into the air. You breathe it in and it starts coating the inside of your bodies, and it gets trapped in the air and the atmosphere. Sometimes you can see smog, just a big haze of it just over cities. Big cities will have like a huge haze of smog, and it's just stuff burning from cars and other things that gets into the air and makes it unclean and unsafe. Sometimes you'll see an air quality warning, and sometimes cities will have like an orange or a red warning, which means that it's really not safe to go outside because the air quality is so low it can really cause damage to your lungs and your body. So reducing air pollution is a very important part of pollution control. Now we're going to simulate some water pollution. So we've got our clean water here, and the first thing that I'm going to add is a little bit of oil. See, when you add the oil, it just sits on the top of the water and collects. And oil, vegetable oil, is safe to eat and drink. This is a safe kind of oil to consume, but a lot of the oil that gets into water is not safe. It's oil from cars, from manufacturing, from factories, things like that, where if you ate it, it would make you really sick. And that's what happens to animals and plants as well. And the only way to remove the oil from water is by actually taking something out to clean it, which is what we're going to do an example of that later this month to show how difficult it is to clean up water pollution and why it's important to try to avoid it to begin with. We're also going to show how chemicals getting in the water can be really harmful too. So this black food coloring is going to represent our chemicals. So what happens when we add chemicals onto our oily water? Now we have chemicals trapped in our oily water. And then if it gets into the water itself, it just spreads. And now it's completely polluted and not safe to drink or use at all. And that's what happens to real chemicals that come off of factories and from landfills and things where chemicals and fertilizer and unhealthy contaminants get into the water, and then you have to spend a lot of time and money cleaning up the water to make it healthy again. So it's better to avoid polluting water to begin with if you can. Now let's talk about soil pollution. A lot of soil pollution that we see today actually comes from trash, and plastic packaging is a huge contributor to ground pollution because this plastic is actually made from oil, and it's made from a type of oil that is not safe to eat or drink. And what happens over time is when these plastics break down, they leach chemicals and oil into the soil, and then the soil can't be used for anything else. And it takes thousands and thousands of years to break this down into something usable to where it's clean again. So once you start adding trash to soil, it can't be used for anything except as a place to hold trash. Even when you bury it down deep into the earth, it's still sitting there for thousands of years. That's why it's better to avoid creating as much trash if you can, because that's a lot friendlier for the earth than simply burying it and hoping that someone in the future is going to take care of it. Really paying attention to packaging and how much plastic you're throwing away is important. When possible, choose plastic and packing materials and products and things that come in recycled packaging, because when you use recycled packaging or compostable packaging, then you are eliminating the need to go through this 1,000-year process of breaking down packaging, which is very harmful for the earth. So now you can see the 3 types of pollution all together. We've got water pollution, we've got air pollution, and we've got ground pollution. Here's the science. Pollution is when a substance contaminates air, water, land, or humans or animals. Pollution can come from many different types of places, such as from different environmental factors or from animals coming into an area and contaminating a water source or something like that. But the majority of pollution on Earth is caused by humans. Things that humans have created and made and produced often lead to some of the biggest forms of pollution in the world. That's why many scientists spend their entire careers looking for ways to reduce the impact of humans on the earth to make it a better, cleaner, and healthier place for us and for animals and plants and everything that lives on the earth. First, let's talk a little bit about air pollution. Air pollution can be caused by wildfires, volcanoes, factory farming, and industrial chemicals, and things like that. However, most air pollution today comes from the burning of fossil fuels, which is created by cars and heaters and things that use natural gas or oil to operate a machine. Burning fossil fuels releases small particles of soot and ash and dust into the air, like we saw whenever we burned our tissue paper in our air jar. It left sooty residue that was stuck to the sides of the jar. That sort of sooty residue can stick to your lungs, it can hurt your body functions, and it also can influence different things in a local environment. Air pollutants can cause things like acid rain, they can cause smog, they can cause the blocking of sunlight so plants don't get as much sun like they need to. And air pollution also contributes to global warming, which is just an excessive amount of smog and air pollutants in the air, haze around the globe that traps heat inside, making it gradually hotter and hotter inside the atmosphere. Air pollution also can injure the ozone layer of the planet, which is a protective layer on the planet that keeps the sun's rays from being as harmful. A thinner or non-existent ozone layer would lead to much higher temperatures on Earth, and it would also cause issues like more skin cancer and damaging effects from the sun's rays. Protecting the Earth from the effects of air pollution is a very important part of preserving the health of the entire world and everything that lives on it. Another main type of pollution that humans cause is water pollution. A lot of water pollution also comes from the same sort of human activities that causes air pollution, like dumping oil and chemicals into the water, or making huge farms that have a lot of fertilizer and waste runoff that gets into the water system and things like that. In our example jar, we put oil pollution into our water, and you can see how the oil never really goes away unless you clean it up. The last main type of pollution is land pollution. Most land pollution is caused by trash and just throwing things away. Factories, farms, and other sorts of manufacturing can also pollute the ground with chemicals and fertilizers and things. Often the ground can be polluted through the water by the pollutants in the water being carried to different areas of the earth and the ground that can cause problems like problems with animal life. It can hamper the growth of plants in an area, and it can also harm humans whenever we're trying to grow our fruits and vegetables and things in the ground. Those pollutants can get into what we eat and cause problems inside our bodies and animal bodies as well. As we saw in our ground pollution model, the plastic and the styrofoam, that can take thousands and thousands of years to fully break down. So when you bury that in the ground, it's just sitting there, leaching plastics and things like that into the ground, making it not suitable for any other use other than as a trash heap. Because pollution is such a serious issue for humans, animals, and plants on the earth, there are many laws in place that require companies to adhere to a certain level of standards to help reduce pollution, and scientists are working every day to help come up with new ways to reduce the impact of humans on the earth. One of the biggest ways that people are trying to reduce human impact is by reducing the amount of fossil fuels used in the world. That's why there are a lot of proposals and research projects around trying to find things that can run machines safely and effectively without damaging the environment, like the burning of fossil fuels does. Many communities also have recycling programs, which is where you can get involved as a student. You'll often hear the three-step process of reduce, reuse, and recycle when it comes to reducing the impact of human on land. Basically, reducing, the concept of reducing what you use and consume helps prevent the need to make so much stuff to begin with. So factories are making less, people are manufacturing less, people are consuming less. So that means that there's just less trash and less pollutants in the world in general. Reusing is just thinking about things that you have already that you can either reuse again or maybe reuse for a different purpose, and that way you're not having to buy something new every time. And then recycling is taking those things once they are not of use anymore and recycling them, turning them back into raw materials so they can be made into something new. Even though you're a child and you can't maybe make as much of a difference as an adult scientist or as a giant company or a government, there are things that you can do personally that will really help add up to make a big difference in how much pollution is in the world. One of the easiest things you can do is pick up trash when you see it in your yard or your house or on the road, anywhere that you are, at a park maybe. You pick up the trash, and then if it's recyclable, put it in a recycling bin, and if it's regular trash, you can just dispose of it in a regular waste bin. If you choose to pick up trash that's not your personal family's trash, make sure that you're wearing gloves and have the supervision of an adult, because some forms of trash can be very dangerous, so you shouldn't pick that up alone without the help of an adult. Another easy thing that you can do to reduce fossil fuel consumption is bike or walk whenever you can. Maybe instead of having your parents drive you to a friend's house that lives in the neighborhood, maybe you can walk there. You can turn off lights and electronics in your house when they're not in use. Instead of leaving like your bathroom light on or your bedroom light on all night, just turn it off. Or turn off your tablet at night. Make sure phones are off at night. Don't leave the TV running if you're not watching it. That kind of thing can really add up to make a big difference. And that not only helps reduce fossil fuel consumption, but it also helps save on energy bills for the adults in your house. When you're buying things, you can look to see if that company is using sustainable practices. Some companies have made the choice to use products that are completely recyclable, or to use packaging that you can compost that can be turned into something else, or to reduce the amount of packaging that they use in their products. Although you can't tell a company what type of packaging to use, whenever you choose to buy from a company who has decided to think about the earth and become more eco-friendly, when you choose to purchase and use products from that company, you're telling all companies that that's what's important to you, and then more and more companies will do it, which will reduce the amount of human impact on the world. You can also pay attention to the packaging and trash that comes into your house and make sure that if something is recyclable, you are putting it in the recycling and disposing of things properly. Don't put hazardous waste into the regular trash where it could cause damage to the ground. Those are just a few things that you can do to make a big difference in your family's personal human impact on the world. You can also follow scientists and nonprofits and things who are trying to work to make the world better and reduce human impact on the earth. You can interact with them and let them know that that's something you care about and that you support their mission. That's it for today. See you next time.